I'll show you the fun part.
You look like you could grab onto one of those things and lift yourself up, or like try.
Hey, everybody!
Hey,
oh, cool. Hey, we're live, and Mark Fidelman is showing us around his office. Look at that! We're taking
this is fun.
Tour.
We've never done this before.
No, this is. I feel.
Okay, we'll do.
We're hip.
That people are talking to him. They want stuff. Let's listen in.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got the 5-cent tour. That's about all it's worth.
That's awesome.
Tell everybody you passed that you're ready to hear that trade secret they were going to tell you in confidence.
Yeah.
Now's the time.
Yeah, exactly. Now's the time to do it. Well, we got a little office tour, everybody. So Mark Fidelman was showing us around the office there. You're in Santa Monica, is that right?
Santa Monica, exactly.
Santa Monica, okay. I know exactly where it is. My sister-in-law's in Venice, so we're down there a lot. Yeah, I love the pier down there. So joining Kerry and I today is Mark Fidelman. He's the founder of Fanatics Media. I am your co-host, Kathy Klotz-Guest of Keeping It Human. And with me, as always, is Kerry Gorgone of...
Am I the Garth in this scenario?
I know. You kind of... I don't know. Are you? Or am I the Wayne?
As always.
As always.
I'm fine being Garth. It's okay.
Because
it's less pressure.
Of marketing smarts. Well, you complete me. You make the other K. Without you, I'm just a K. But we're together. We're KK. We're
KK. You guys do this together all the time? Or are you guys both doing this at a regular pre-scheduled time?
We are.
We are.
Yeah. We have our separate stuff. So I have my individual podcast, Yes and Brand Show. Kerry has Marketing Smarts. And then we decided to team up on a weekly basis at this time to do Business SHEnanigans because we felt like we wanted to see... there wasn't enough shenanigans. There wasn't enough women. There wasn't enough K's in names, and there wasn't enough like just fun chatting about trends. So that's kind of what we decided to do. And last
female perspective,
totally. Well, and last week I missed your face, Kerry. You were gone. And then 2 weeks ago we got to talk to Chris Brogan about blockchain. So, Mark, we got a little bit of the lay of the land of like blockchain and all that stuff. And we only sort of just scratched the surface of Bitcoin. So, so here's the thing.
Because those two are not the same thing, which we learned 2 weeks ago.
We learned.
From Chris
we totally
Brogan.
learned. Yeah. And it's comical because we're not Luddites. I came out of tech in Silicon Valley. It's just, there's only so many cycles to know all the technology. So we're excited to have you join us. And let's talk about we're going to talk about all the things, Mark, all the things. Cryptocurrency trends, why it matters. I'm big on story strategy and big on narrative. So maybe we start there. What's the big 50,000 foot level narrative about cryptocurrency and why people should care?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big takeaway for people is it's not really about cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is built on what's called the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
The real innovation is the blockchain. I mean, currency is just one app of the blockchain. I'm trying to simplify things as much as possible. But there's some incredible stuff being done on the blockchain today. And once we get into Gen 2, Gen 3 versions of the blockchain, just like the internet, you're going to see some pretty amazing things that are game-changing, and I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds that way. And we, in our conversation a couple of weeks ago, it just seems like that whole infrastructure, all the different applications that layer on top of that, it's going to be pretty revolutionary. It's going to really, I think trust is such a big thing right now. And if it's going to add security and trust to the transactions, I think that's huge. I think where it gets a little kind of fuzzy, and I know, it's bigger than just cryptocurrency. I think cryptocurrency is just, it's this up and down market movement. I think a lot of businesses are looking at it going, how's it really going to affect me? Some businesses are taking cryptocurrency, but it seems to me that we're a long ways off from more businesses really going, you know what? That's legit. We're going to totally take cryptocurrency.
I'm a little worried about like the average Joe's going, hey, it's totally legit. I'm going to put my life savings into cryptocurrency.
I mean, there's some millennials that have put their life savings in there. Now, they did it early.
Their life is really short.
Where they're making a fortune, right? I mean, they've already made, if you look at Bitcoin where it was trading this time last year, I think it was $800. Now it's at $8,000. It went as high as $20,000. I mean, these kids that were smart enough just to buy, let's just say 100 Bitcoin, That's a lot of money to a millennial.
That's crazy amounts of money. I think what blows my mind, I don't know if you watch John Oliver, Mark. John Oliver did this very funny sort of cryptocurrency sort of bro hype kind of thing. And he looked at all the hype out there. And there were a lot of companies a year ago hyping cryptocurrency that are now out of business. And I think it sort of begged the question of how much is hype? How much is real? I'm sure crypto is here to stay, but there are companies with maybe their versions or they're pushing their agendas in the crypto trend space that are not credible. And I think it seems like every day there's like a new thing popping up. I mean, you've got Ethereum and you've got Ripple. Just you were talking about Ripple. Where do you begin to understand this, and how do you know what's credible and what's not?
Wow. To answer that question, I would start with
Go on.
It took me 6 months just to get on par with the average person that's in the industry, and now it's impossible to keep up with what everything else is going on in the industry. There's so many different facets and so many different things that you can look at. I mean, I write about cryptocurrencies, and every single new cryptocurrency or every single utility token that I write about, I have to do a complete deep dive. I mean, these are individual use cases that just happen to be built on the blockchain. It's the same thing as companies that are built off the internet, like Amazon. I mean, they all have a very unique story. They all do things differently. And so I don't feel bad if you don't know, what's happening in the space, because most people don't. Even the expert insiders, they really don't. They have a good understanding of the foundation, which is how blockchain works, and they probably know the top 20 utility tokens or cryptocurrency currencies. But beyond that, they're just probably as clueless as you and I.
Well, and that's good. That makes me feel better, because it seems like there's so much flux. I mean, the market is just going crazy, and people are trying to understand it. And I think, to your point, it feels like there's new companies entering the space all the time. And because that is happening at such a rapid pace, how do you even begin to vet what you should be doing as a business and say, you know what, it's going to shake out, there'll be a consolidation, and what should I know about how crypto is going to affect me? Like, what do I need to do? If I'm a small business, can I afford to go, crypto's so far out there. That's hipster shit. I don't need to worry about that. Like,
my clients are all old.
My clients are
write
old.
checks.
Right. And they write checks. So I think, how does the average business even get their head around it if the crypto experts, and I agree with you, are kind of going, there's still so much shakeup in this thing?
Well, I don't know what they mean by shakeup, but I think what they mean is there's a lot of companies that raised a lot of money that are not going to be around in 2 years, and they're right.
Yeah.
But the blockchain is a big disintermediator, not unlike the internet. So if you look at what blockchain can do, I'll give you one example. Uber is probably in trouble because you don't need an Uber if you have blockchain to kind of schedule a car. The blockchain can automatically take care of that. I don't know if you're aware of smart contracts and how they work, but
assume no.
Okay, so smart.
We're too dumb contracts, Mark.
We know.
Dumb contracts.
But for everybody else who maybe doesn't.
Yeah, so no problem. It's very simple. So if you think of the blockchain as a public Excel spreadsheet on the internet. Yeah. And then you look at, you're familiar with the concept of Excel macros? Yeah. So all a smart contract is an Excel macro. And you can program it to do anything. So if I'm ordering a car, that smart contract can find somebody that's very close by, tell that car, hey, come pick up this particular driver, follow them as they do, and then when they drop me off, the payment's made automatically. You don't need an Uber for that. All of these things are in process of being built. So if your company can be disintermediated, you're in big trouble. If you could build your solution off the blockchain, you should probably start to take a look at that. Now, I'm not trying to cause anyone to panic. We're still 2 or 3 years off, but it's coming.
But can the blockchain make sure that your driver doesn't murder you?
Yeah.
Not like Uber's doing great in that regard either.
There are solutions, what I call guardian solutions, though, that use the blockchain. A friend of mine's just raising money for one, where it leverages the blockchain. So if you are in trouble, you just press a button and then the cops show up.
That's, that's important. That's important.
Don't press it by accident.
Don't press it. Yeah. Don't piss off the blockchain. Don't abuse the blockchain.
Don't touch that button.
It's like the up and down, like in the car, which my son like just plays with all the time. I'm like, knock it off. Kipster, who's out here in San Francisco near me. Hey, Kipster, says blockchain tech is being used by major banking institutions. No question. Yeah, that's interesting because it's true. And what I'm reading about the financial institutions trying to crack down on security and fraud and get that stuff out of the system using blockchain. But I still think what's puzzling, and this is sort of, I guess, the heart of the conversation is, I totally get the foundation of security and how it will revolutionize. I think what's curious to me is how, on top of that, getting back to like Bitcoin and Ethereum and different currencies, cryptocurrencies, I think it's still interesting and a little unclear how this will roll out and how it will affect the average business. And at what point they need to start going, you know what, we need to start thinking about our systems and how we take payments and how we think about that customer experience. Like, what's the customer payment experience because of Bitcoin? And it's not totally clear to me that it's going to happen tomorrow for smaller businesses. I think bigger businesses are still trying to figure out how crypto is going to affect them, it seems to me.
Yeah, on the currency side, if you're thinking about it as a currency, the problem with Bitcoin and several others is it just doesn't happen fast enough. They're not as fast as Visa and MasterCard. So if you're using Bitcoin, it could take 30 minutes to clear. Who's going to wait in a grocery store line for something to clear in 30 minutes? The answer, no one. But they're getting faster. It will happen. Then the question becomes, okay, nobody's backing this cryptocurrency. Nobody's guaranteeing it. Is it safe to use? But I will tell you that there is a currency called Monero, if you're not familiar with it, that is heavily being used, that more trades in Monero than a lot of small countries. Most of it's illicit, unfortunately, but that's how Bitcoin started. But it works pretty fast for mid to large size transactions. So it's already happening, even though we're not seeing it, because Monero is a very secure and private cryptocurrency. In fact, it's probably the closest thing to cash that we could tell. You can't trace it. You can't tell who's sending money to who. It's very secure, which is why all the illicit users like it. There's legitimate users that use it too, but it's going to come. I don't know what form. I'm not really focused on currencies. I'm more focused on what the blockchain can do.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting with all the crypto stuff, this idea of it being decentralized, and it still feels a little bit vaporware. And it's really interesting because I remember back in my day, where did that come from? Like over 40, all of a sudden it's like crazy shit that white people say at over 40.
What is that day anyway? When you say back in the day?
Back in the day. Exactly.
Such a long time ago.
Such a long time ago.
Specify.
Well, I remember in the early 2000s, and
St. Crispin's Day.
I know. In the early 2000s, once upon a time when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I remember the first. I think it was it Wingspan Bank? I want to say Wingspan. The very first online only bank popped up, and I remember it being a massive failure because at that time, the idea of just an online only bank flipped people's brains. Now we've come a long way since then, but I think these things always take, some adoption because even more so than not being able to see the teller's eyes and go into a physical building, this idea that it's decentralized and how do you know it's even secure and who owns it and where is it? I think that's a hard one for a lot of businesses and smaller businesses and individuals to get their heads around. I mean, that just feels like,
you need a publicist for the technology.
Where's my money? Where's my money?
Explain it to people.
Exactly. I think Bitcoin needs a hype person. It needs a hype person.
They do.
A hype person?
A hype person. To follow
well,
around and be all,
it's got plenty of hype people. It needs some like legitimate PR people to explain it.
Exactly. Well, that's what I mean. Legitimate.
There are so many hypesters. They're like fraudsters now. I mean, there are a lot of people hyping Bitcoin. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
I run into way too many of them. I tend to tune them out. So it's just, I think maybe the channels that you guys are in, you're probably not seeing that yet. But
no, but they're ruining it for. See, what I really want, I want like a Chris Brogan or someone who knows what they're talking about and is telling you because it's helpful to you to know, not because they've got some like new startup and they want to like hustle you. I mean, that's what I'm looking for. And not every startup is out to hustle you, but you know what I mean? You get that vibe off someone and you shut down, like intellectually you're not receptive to new ideas. So it's not helping us any.
So Bitcoin's not going to be your side hustle, Kerry, is what you're saying. That's not going to be.
I mean, I'm not saying I won't use it.
Maybe they need somebody
purposes.
They need one of you two to become that person. Have you looked at what Joel Comm and Travis Wright are doing?
I have listened to their podcast. I have. And I think part of, so I'm going to sort of indict myself here. I think part of what happens here, and I love what they've done with that podcast. I think it gets to Kerry's point. I think there is, I'm being comical when I say hype, but there does need to be some legitimate, like, conservative, like, let's add a layer of realism to when we talk about it so people understand who's got skin in the game of what company. So it's all transparent. And when we're talking about stuff, we know, and it's being hyped, who's got stakes in what. And because I still think there is so much hype out there regarding it.
Gen Z equivalents of game show hosts. Like in the 70s, you would have said you're like a game show host and you wouldn't trust them. And now it's like, this is the new thing. It's the Bitcoin hustler.
It's the Bitcoin Superman. It's the super mansion Bitcoin.
So you automatically devalue what they say because you don't trust them.
Right. That's probably the majority of the the whole category. I mean, I would say I would tell you though, when the internet first came out, that was a common refrain that I heard a lot. Yeah. Oh, this is going to go away. What good is it? It's just for porn and drugs and whatever else.
Well, everything is for porn first, even Bitcoin.
Porn. VCRs. Right. What drove the VCR market?
The porn people were like, let's get on this blockchain thing. They were like the first people. How to be?
But they're not. I haven't seen a successful porn blockchain solution yet. I don't think
the fact that you haven't seen it tells me that's successful. Keep it on the down low.
I'm just saying for another time, go Google robot porn. I'm just saying, don't do it now. Just go do
it. Who's Googling? Who thinks to put those two words together, though?
People are weird. People are just weird. And you know that the porn industry.
By people, we mean Kathy. Yeah, sir.
Can we look at your Google search history real quick?
Yeah, just screen share. No big deal. It's just us.
No. But it's just comical because you're right.
Howard.
If you're we'll do it live. We'll do a live unveiling.
Oh, for sure.
Exactly. But no, it's true. I think it's interesting because if there is an application, just for a serious minute here, usually porn is an innovator and finding out how to take whatever application there is out there and figure out how to monetize it. I mean, that's clear.
Is there something here and how can we make money?
I mean, it is what it is. They're
good at exploiting. Who knew?
Good. They're good at it. They're good. Drone porn. I'm thinking
drone porn. I don't know what that is. I can't even think.
Oh my gosh.
I have an active imagination. I can't put my head around that one.
Well,
I'm
just saying it could happen. I mean, it's just, I live in Silicon Valley where like all these ideas are just merging. And so it's sort of a cacophony of all these crazy ideas. But I do think, I am fascinated on a serious level by blockchain and how it will change things. I think it's just, how would you explain it to like the average person who might be considering even looking at it as an investment? I mean, I don't know, Mark, if you get that question a lot.
Yeah.
What even is it? What even is blockchain?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the best analogy, and I think I've used it in a different context before, would be it's just a giant spreadsheet in the sky that's immutable. It cannot be changed. So once it's written, it cannot be changed. Why can't it be changed? Because people are taking whatever's in that blockchain, let's just call it a cell, and it's being replicated on tens of thousands of computers. So in order to change that blockchain, you'd have to hack 10,000 computers simultaneously. Which isn't going to happen. It's just not. So now you have an immutable record on anything that you've ever done with a particular application. Let's use title insurance. You guys both have purchased homes, I assume?
Yes.
What does it cost in California for the average title insurance policy? $6,000, $5,000, $6,000?
Probably, yeah.
So if you have an immutable record of all title transactions in California on the blockchain, why do you need title insurance? Because title insurance is just ensuring that nobody's got a claim against your home, right? Blockchain cannot be edited, cannot be changed, cannot be, you cannot reverse it. It is a record of every title transaction that has ever happened. So all you'd have to do is search,
Since the beginning, like when the pioneers went out and put their flags down.
Well, you got
to.
you have to have.
I'm a lawyer, so I'm thinking literally way back. Like, really? Because what if Amelia Earhart shows up, like some ancestor of hers, and says, "This house is mine, bitches." The blockchain didn't think about that.
It's day zero, right? So day zero would be whenever this solution started, and there are people working on it right now. So it's going to happen. From before day zero, you'd probably still need title insurance, but up to day zero, and day zero and beyond, you don't need title insurance. So the title insurance will become less and less expensive as you move forward. If it's a new house,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
If it's a new house, then you don't need title insurance at all. So this is the type of solution. I'm just giving one example.
Yeah.
What it's going to do.
So do you think that this will become something that's relevant to people that they don't even think about or realize is happening behind the scenes, or will it be something that they actively interact with? Like the internet obviously became something they actively interacted with.
Blockchain is just going to become something it's another tool. It's a very important tool. It'll be a big tool that you won't even know is happening. You won't know if it's on a blockchain or an Oracle database or anywhere else. But for those of us that are studying the market, it's kind of an inexpensive solution to set up that's very powerful, especially when you add in the smart contracts. Because then things are being done automatically.
Yeah. Well, it goes to your point, Mark, earlier about really disintermediating things that don't add value in that chain. So you think about insurance in general. I mean, that to me is a really good example of where it just won't add value. And even just things like, and this is a hot button for me, images, like who owns what image, for copyrights and things like that. It just seems like you'll have a trail of things like that, so it would mitigate disputes. It would lessen disputes, and there would.
Could you use it for that? Yeah. To track ownership of an image from its original appearance anywhere online.
Because
so there's two companies I know of that are already doing that.
Makes total sense, because it's really hard to do. And like Kerry's heard my sob story, but it's really hard to do because if you use a Creative Commons image, and like you can't, and you do a reverse lookup, you can't always original source it. And that is a real problem because, you want to give credit to who originated it, but you don't know who actually owns that copyright. If somebody takes it and I
then
think
uploads it and says it's Creative Commons, but it's still stolen. Yeah.
Exactly. They know what they did, Brian. I'm not naming any
blockchain
names,
would know.
Brian, blockchain knows what you did.
Last summer. Summer before that.
Yeah.
There's also other solutions like, why do you think it takes so long to wire money to the UK or anywhere else for that matter? Why does it take a full day? Because the SWIFT system's broken and it's expensive.
Wow.
But with blockchain, you can do it instantaneously, right? And they have a written record. There's no way of reversing it. It only goes to the right person. There's a lot of wire fraud. I don't know if guys have been.
Oh my God, tons of wire fraud. It's a big problem with out here in California, probably Mark, with, wiring to Mexico and things like that. It's just, there's a huge issue. That could be really, that could really change, the game. For
that's what Ripple's doing. You mentioned Ripple earlier, so that's one thing at Ripple and Stellar. are doing in order to mitigate that problem. It's not going to be $50 to do a wire. It's going to be more like 50 cents.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's really interesting because it creates an innovation. Not only does it create the ripple effect, for innovation, but it seems to me, in getting some of these other people out of the food chain, it could really stand to with smart contracts too. It's like, why do we need certain types of companies? And
why do we need attorneys?
Yeah. Why do we need people like Kerry?
Yeah.
Because I'm awesome and entertaining.
You are awesome. You are. You totally
I don't
are.
practice law anymore. Don't scare people off.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I'm not scaring anybody. Kipster says Stellar will replace PayPal. And Kipster knows a lot more than I do about this stuff. Yeah, that's fascinating to me because the way that we pay today and what we think is secure today, I think is all going to be completely upended. It sounds like,
Well, I mean, PayPal is what? They take 3% or whatever it is, unless you're sending it to a family member.
Yeah.
There's going to be pennies. So I happen to agree with Kipster. I don't know when this is going to happen, but it should happen and within the next couple of years. I don't know about replace PayPal. I think PayPal is probably working on their own blockchain solution.
Yeah.
But I think Stellar's going to give them a run for the money.
If they're smart, yeah. But getting back to things like Uber, and Kerry, you mentioned Uber earlier. It's like how will it change how these types of companies operate? I'm just curious because there's so much with security and trust and transparency. I mean, how will it affect companies like that? Do you have a sense of that?
He's like, what?
What?
I'm thinking with GDPR too, and that data security is now more important than ever, and companies have to be super transparent. They need to not only be careful about where their data is coming from and how they use it, but they're going to need to demonstrate. Like they're going to need data to turn around and prove that they've actually been doing what they're supposed to. So I'm thinking that's where blockchain could be really valuable because it can't be altered. Yeah.
Well, I hope that, I'm just going to say it, I hope it is the death of Equifax. I hope Equifax dies a very painful death.
Self-righteous dicks.
It knows what it did.
It knows.
Oh, they had.
It's replaced its CEO and the company. Where I think I mentioned we're doing some blockchain solutions. So there's a company that I'm working on called Prime Chain that's looking to do just that.
It should. It seems to me it's Darwinian, right? They had one job to do. I'm always like on this rant, Mark. It's like you had one job. All you had to do was secure people's data. That's it. That is your sole reason to exist. If you do not abide by your sole reason to exist, ergo, why do we need you? So I hope they do die a very painful death.
And very too late. I mean, all of our information's on the dark web. Anyone could easily hack any of us. That's why a brand new solution needs to be created. We need to get really smart about credit because it's really bad right now.
It's really bad. No, it's horrifyingly bad. And I think not to scare people, but people already know that, I'm sure. It is out there.
But what is credit scoring even for, except to predict whether or not you'll pay back a debt? They'll be able to tell if you have money sufficient to pay your debts just by looking. Like the blockchain won't lie about that. You either have it or you don't.
That's
so I
right.
don't know if scoring is even going to matter.
Well, there might still be scoring, but you're right. I mean, as long as everyone participates, right? You still have to have the banks, credit cards, automobile loans, personal loans. They all have to report to the blockchain. But you don't need an Equifax in a situation like that because it's already on the blockchain. It's easy to search.
So it sounds like
the permission is with you because right now anyone can check your credit. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, right? Anybody that's going to extend you a credit offer can check your credit without your permission. With the blockchain, they have to have your permission. They have to have a key. Take a look at that data. So you get everything back in terms of control. Right now, you don't have control. They do sell you left and right without your consent.
Yeah,
I don't know how much longer people are going to tolerate that kind of invasion of privacy. It came up a lot at Adobe Summit. Like people are very now aware of their personal data and how much is out there in a way that they weren't before.
Yeah.
And I think now the time is right. Whereas before they might have been like, I don't know about all this blockchain. How does it affect me? If you can convince them it keeps their information safe and show them how, I think people will be more receptive to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. And I think you're right. Do you think it's going to, is something else going to replace like the TransUnions and those companies, or do you think they adopt blockchain? Can they survive, or are they just outdated dinosaurs who just didn't take data seriously, and now something else, some other company is going to come along and sort of obviate the need for these credit bureaus?
That's ripe for disruption, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That industry. Like the yogurt industry was like, we got this, and then Greek yogurt came along.
And by this, I mean your data.
Yeah.
I think two things are happening simultaneously. One, I believe the government's got some kind of committee that they're setting up with the credit bureaus to kind of figure out, okay, Social Security numbers don't work anymore. Let's figure out a more secure system. And then two, there are companies, there's 3 that I know of that are working on a credit solution on the web, or on the blockchain, sorry. So those 2 things are happening simultaneously, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I'm curious, and Kerry, as a lawyer, she and I have talked a lot about this. One of the things that scares me the most when you say that is that the government's legislating and coming up with formulating regulations on technology that it doesn't understand. And you know, we've seen this over and over. We've seen this is a broken record, and we've seen this over and over again. And this goes back to, again, in my day, years ago. So I was at Excite, and I had to work with congressional representatives on the Child's Online Privacy Protection Act, the COPPA Act, because we had the biggest users of our platform for instant messaging were kids, and probably adults pretending to be kids. And so we couldn't we could not market to kids. One of the scariest things, there were very few representatives that came out and really tried to understand, except for, people like Anna Eshu and things like that. But there were very few representatives, Mark, that came to the company to understand the technology. One of my jobs was to help to educate them. And what was really scary is that, people back in DC were writing laws and regulations and admit that they didn't understand the technology, had never used it. And this kind of stuff scares the pants off me, because these are not, to put it mildly, people in DC they're just not experts in this. And
you gotta rock the vote, people.
Yeah.
Gotta get out there and vote. If somebody's like, I don't know about all this Facebook voodoo.
Exactly.
Members aren't usually elected; they're appointed. So you didn't even get to vote for them. I'm hoping that
the people who make the appointments, you vote for them.
Yeah, but the tech committee. But the tech committee, as Mark's saying, is you don't have a choice on who gets on the technology committee. So you might get like Mr. Crotchety Pants, who still writes checks, going, you know what? I don't understand this newfangled shit, so I'm not going to do it. And
well, then you're just going to have what we have now, which is outdated laws that don't address the circumstances in which real problematic transactions are happening.
Right.
And there won't be any recourse. So there'll be this like lag time during which you'll see some pretty, horrific things happen to people. And
it's not just government. I remember doing some stories around universities that, it took them like 6 years before social media was already mainstream to start having classes on it. Harvard didn't, Stanford didn't. All the big ones didn't have any classes on social media. So government's probably even lagged even behind them. So society in general, any institution that is not competitive seems to lag by several years.
There's another industry that's ripe for disruption. It's higher education. They're being already disrupted because it's so difficult to keep up. And they just have to change like curriculum or change their attitude, I guess. But their accreditations and stuff require they use certain texts. What we have is really just, I think, a failure on the part of people in government to appreciate what this all means to people. You can choose to ignore it in your own life, but when you represent other people, you have to at least consider the ramifications to them and try to, but it's really still hard, I think, to find the right balance of power there. Like if you don't understand something and what ultimately could happen if you use blockchain the wrong way, then you're not going to make the right regulations around it to protect people.
That's exactly, I think, the greatest fear, because I don't have a lot of confidence in our legislators because they don't understand the technology. So my only hope is that they are working with the right people in technology to do it. Or hear me out on this one. We use blockchain to disrupt Congress and we elect drones and robots. And
you like robot porn. Is this coming back?
I'm just saying, maybe
coming back to that. She's got to end with it.
Coming back to that. She's waiting for that window.
I'm just saying, maybe we could get more done if we actually, could we disrupt Congress with blockchain? Could blockchain
you could get more done if you stop looking at robot porn?
Yes.
Don't judge me.
How much time?
Don't judge me.
What's your day is consumed with that?
It's not. It's just a question.
They're robots. They can go all day.
I don't think I've ever heard those two words together, frankly.
Well, okay, I'm a comic, so I was reading. So my brain always puts mashups together. That's part of what comedy is. And I was reading this article that was talking about how Domino's, all these pizza companies were experimenting with drone delivery. And I'm sorry, but the first thing that came to my mind is that is going to make for some pretty confusing porn. I'm sorry. What's going to happen now? My pizza guy is now a drone. That's going to be confusing for everybody involved. I'm sorry. That's what I thought. That was my first.
I was more thinking it's going to drop pizza from a great height and be like, thanks. But I got it in 30 minutes.
Hey, you have your concerns and I have mine. I'm just saying.
Drones aren't going to deliver porn. I mean, that's not a market anymore, right?
It's not. This was just a joke. It was all a joke.
Maybe like in an augmented reality type experience.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd ask for a demonstration, but this is PGTV.
You can ask me. I'm not the one who's into it. You got to ask the connoisseur.
See, this is what you get for being a comedian, living in Silicon Valley, trying to understand technologies and marry it with the everyday person and how their life's going to change. So,
because the everyday person worries about robot porn.
You do realize that the ratio of men to women in Silicon Valley is 10 to 1. So, I think that's I'm just saying to you, but. Okay.
Good people of Tennessee would not cotton to that.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. We're not talking about that.
About y'all. We're not talking about y'all.
I'm talking about y'all. So I guess, Mark, because there's so many questions and we're running out of time, but what are some of the, I guess if you could leave a few tidbits of information with people, what should people really kind of understand about, how maybe they should look at blockchain, the average kind of person, how it will maybe disrupt their life, and or maybe Bitcoin, if Bitcoin will play a role for them, and when.
And should they buy it?
And should they buy it? I'm just asking. And what was the name of that? What was the stock ticker on that one? I'm sorry. I'm just asking for.
Let me just start with this. If you would have bought the top 20 utility tokens and currencies January 1, 2017, and you would have put a couple $100 into each of those, and that would have been what, $4,000. It would have been worth over $500,000 a year later. Now, history is not going to repeat itself, I don't believe, in the cryptocurrency community, but if you're looking for an investment strategy, I'd probably pick the top 20, create a basket, and just invest a little bit of money, and then watch that basket very carefully. And only invest what you can afford to lose until you really understand what's going on. I mean, this is Gen 1, so it's the Wild Wild West, and you see that reflected in the cryptocurrency prices. Gen 2, legitimate businesses are going to be on the blockchain that are going to be worth investing in, that are going to pay off big, and they're going to disintermediate thousands, if not millions, of companies. So the way I look at the second part of your question is, if I've got a business and I'm the middleman, if there's a blockchain solution, it will be invented, or you better invent it, because you will in yourself be disintermediated like several thousand companies have been, Toys R Us only being the latest, by the internet. This is going to happen with the blockchain. It's going to happen faster on the blockchain than it did with the internet. So I look at that perspective in terms of investing, and will this impact me in my business in the next 5 to 10 years? Because if you are a middleman, it will. Yeah.
Do you think that Toys R Us would have been, if they had access to blockchain and this kind of stuff, do you think that would have helped? I mean, do you think that kind of fits into?
Yeah, Toys R Us just didn't innovate. They never could catch up to Amazon. They couldn't create in-store experiences that would cause you to want to go there. I mean, they have toys. They should have done it. But they never got ahead of the curve. They wanted to be in Amazon. and they didn't have the personnel, they didn't have the mindset, they weren't set up to be in Amazon, but they could have had in-store experiences or reasons for people to get in their car and drive over. I mean, I can think of several ideas they could have implemented that would have saved them.
I think Lego, because Lego innovated. They figured out how to do the online, offline experience pretty seamlessly.
Right.
And no, I think you're right. And I think I was reading too that in the case of Toys R Us specifically, a lot of it was just bad debts and not restructuring. And also too, they're getting paid for, some of their receivables were out of control. And it just seems like maybe had they been a little bit more of a modernized mentality, to your point, maybe that would have helped. But Kerry, what say you?
Those are all the people that are like, get off my lawn with your blockchain and your cryptocurrency. We've got the 4 Ps.
Yeah.
You got to experiment.
Yeah.
You really do. You got to experiment. You got to try new things. You got to stop doing what you were doing 20 years ago in your stores, and do some things that are going to bring people into the store that normally wouldn't come into the store because they could just order off of Amazon.
There's been an interesting resurgence in customer experience and the importance of real life interactions and kind of the 4 senses in relation to your brands and making things memorable for people. It's coming back. I mean, technology is important for personalization, obviously, and all of that, but unless you have a relationship with people that's based on an emotional connection and that requires experiences that are shared, you're not going to get anywhere.
Did you talk at all
that?
Well, yeah, I mean, Kerry just came back from the Adobe Summit. Did you guys talk at all about like blockchain and where maybe that and the right customer experience together might, be transformative? Did you talk about that at all?
Oh, all kinds of stuff. I mean, all kinds of personalization. It's getting faster. It's getting easier. It's like table stakes now to provide a relevant, personalized experience for people. They just stop paying attention to you and have a worse opinion of your brand if you send them something that's not targeted, like an ad for a product they just bought. I mean, you burn that bridge and they don't come back. So there's a lot of talk about that. What they can do now is just amazing with the data that's available and predictive analytics too, predicting what people are going to be interested in. It's like, not only do we know what you want now, we know what you're probably going to want tomorrow, and they're paying real attention. You can do valuable things with it. But when you think about technology, the needs of people at that summit and everywhere else, they need to understand this technology and how it's going to relate to them. Because that's the questions people are asking. And data security and privacy, those are at the forefront of almost every conversation I overheard this week. Yes, experience, but also the concerns people have about keeping their data protected and the concerns brands have about being transparent. So it's kind of a trifecta.
That makes so much sense. I Mark, you probably know this, you can answer this. It's like, I would have thought Facebook, with all its resources and being sort of on the vanguard of technology, would have been doing a lot better with security and data privacy. What happened? Like, what happened there?
I think this whole thing's overblown. I mean, it happened in the last 2 elections. I covered the Obama elections, and they were using data from Facebook extremely well. I don't want to go this far, but they were, let's just say, crossing the gray line occasionally into what they were able to access and what they were able to do. I mean, they had a machine going too, but there wasn't a lot of discussion about it. All of a sudden, there's a lot of discussion about what Cambridge Analytics did, which to me, it's a red herring. It's going to go away. Facebook is in business to help guys like me find my target audience. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy they know more about my customers than I do, because it makes it easier for me to put my message in front of them.
Yeah.
But I think they've, recognizing a public backlash, they've gone too far the other way. Now I'm thinking I'm going to pull all of our ads off of Facebook because they're such a pain in the ass getting anything through right now, and they're being ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a pendulum swing, and now people are so much more aware of what's out there. Like, you can go download your data file from Facebook, and I think people are now just realizing, but it's been out there for a while. I think you're right. I mean, it goes back to the credit bureau stuff. Your data's been out there for a long time. I think people just didn't know, or kind of didn't think about it in those terms, and it's out there.
You talked about real estate transactions earlier. They used to put people's social security numbers like on the printed mortgages that got recorded. There's there's books. Yeah. You can't redact all those books. I mean, it's out there.
No doubt it's out there. There's been talk for years, though, before blockchain, there was talk for years about getting rid of the dependence on social security numbers. Like in Europe, I know in the UK, they don't have that concept. And I think they're smart. I mean, but there's been talk over the years about that. But I think we're so much of our old legacy systems are the records are all based on social security numbers. So then, Mark, it seems like it would cost a fortune, or at least to redo everything. And that's a big stumbling block because of the impediment there.
Scan my retina. That's all right. Oh, are you going to do some pull-ups? Let's see this.
No. I'm running out of battery, so I got to go plug in real quick.
Oh, check out how cool is this office.
I know.
So you talk about what your company is doing with cryptocurrency and how blockchain is impacting your own business. I mean, once you're plugged in.
Yeah.
And done with your pull-ups.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
Well, wait. Go ahead.
Okay.
Will blockchain help the pull-ups? Will blockchain improve your oxygen intake?
Oh my God, I hope so.
Yeah.
Only if they develop a bio version of it, I guess. Then maybe.
So how are you using it? To Kerry's question, because I think one of the things that, Mark, we hear a lot about is we hear about companies like IBM. And those are big companies, and they're an aberration because they're the big companies. You'd expect
IBM, Microsoft, Adobe, all that. Yeah.
They have deep pockets, right? They're the big companies. So how might a company like, say, your company, that's not a IBM yet, how are you using it?
So we're going to move a lot of different things over to the blockchain. There's no question that's going to happen. How? I'm not going to say right now, but maybe in a future episode. Yeah.
We got to start having people drink when they join us on these.
We do.
We're saying like the time of day we should start drinking. A few drinks in, get him a little liquored up. We might get some.
Still early. I don't start my heavy drinking for about another 90 minutes.
Moderate drinking.
Well, we're going to have to do beer and blockchain. We'll do a beer and blockchain episode, and we'll just kind of, we'll talk about it. I like it. Yeah. No, well, I'm curious. We will have to have you back because I think that's the part that I think when you talk about the examples, I think everyone gets hung up on it. I know I do because I'm thinking about that's all fine and well and good because the examples we're giving are all the usual suspects that do have the infrastructure and the deep pockets and the technological expertise. But when you start talking about the average business that's smaller, and you're trying to get your head around what does it look like for them and what's the investment and then how long before they start getting a return on that. I think it gets hard to talk about because it's just not relatable when you talk about what IBM did or Microsoft did, not to me and Kerry. It's like, that's not us.
Right. Now, there's a lot of startups though that are focusing on it, and those stories, they are being told, but the problem is that none of them have solutions yet.
Yeah.
Because they've just raised the money. I mean, ICOs have been a big thing for the last just about a year, so they haven't had time to build their products, but they're coming.
Yeah.
You're going to start to see the early versions of it probably in the summer.
Well, they're flexible enough. I mean, they're just starting out. They can adopt it and make this kind of the foundation or the cornerstone of what they're doing versus enterprises that have been doing things for a long time. Some of them are.
They're starting with blockchain. So just like companies that started on the internet, they're going to have a huge advantage over everybody else trying to move to a blockchain solution. Yeah.
No, for sure. I think the other thing is we're not hearing a lot of stories outside of it. I think one of the things that I'd love to see as somebody who's a storyteller, and I think stories really bring that proof home. I'm not hearing a lot of stories outside of, well, we're experimenting and we're using it in these very clandestine ways. I'm not hearing a lot of stories that are like, yeah, that's a huge win. I can see how that would revolutionize medical records or, whatever. And I'd like to hear some more of those stories from different industries. But I really love the real estate example you gave, and I think the smart contracts example is a really good one. I also do think that the story that we talked about of upending the credit bureaus who are badly, badly broken, die Equifax, die, stab. I think those are really powerful examples of where it could really make a big, big difference. And I think we just
sounds like there's more to come, Kathy. So like we just have to wait, and you're going to get those stories.
I want to wait.
A couple more rounds of VC capital, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's company raising money from being able to trade the tokens of these companies that are raising money to build their products. That's the beauty of it. It's also disrupting VC. I mean, for the first time ever, more money was raised via cryptocurrency than venture capital for startups. That's a big change that not many people talk about. They should be talking about it where you live, Kathy, in Silicon Valley, because it's a big disruptor.
It is a big disruptor. And actually, now that you say that most of what's happening in, you're right. And I did just read that. And also too, VCs can't invest fast enough in some of these blockchain because the demand is so high, but the portfolios are limited and they've only got a certain time horizon for investment. And so they're getting their money elsewhere, which means microfinanced through Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is almost like the GoFundMe or Kickstarter of cryptocurrencies. And it's insane. And I'm reading that. The other thing that I hope personally, because I'm out here in Silicon Valley, is that last year, 2% of all VC money went to women-founded startups. 2%. You heard that right. 2%. 2% mil.
Whole percent, or are you rounding up?
2%. I think that's probably a 2% margin of error. If we round, went to women-founded startups. And the reason why I'm excited about it is because I think there are some startups popping up, Mark, out here that are founded by women, and they deal with blockchain in different industries. And I would really love to see if VCs won't invest for whatever reason, maybe there are other models that are Bitcoin-backed, crowdsourced funding where people can get funded. If VCs won't do it, somebody else will.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of raising money via cryptocurrencies is that you can raise money from anywhere from around the world. You could do it via the crowd like Kickstarter, or you could do it through strategic investments from big investors, whether they're institutional. Not many institutional investors are in the game yet, but there are some what I call crypto whales that are making big investments, like the Winklevoss twins, for example. So they're huge in this space, and I don't know the reason, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of female-founded cryptocurrency funds yet. So if you know of any, please send them my way.
I will. No, I'm just as anxious as you are to see that. So, and it's interesting that you're right. I'm not seeing a lot of the bigger institutionalized banks get into this kind of space.
They're afraid.
They're conservative. They're scared. Yeah. No, it's too new.
Why would they invest in something that's going to disrupt them? I mean, banks are in trouble in 5 years.
Because, well, you said it. I mean, look, you got to eat your own lunch.
Yourself.
You got to disrupt yourself because somebody else will. Somebody else will, right?
They're even more conservative than Toys R Us. They're not going to do it. There'll be some. There'll be some, but not many. They're going to hold out. You watch.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So last, got any last predictions or last comment or we learned a lot. We discussed a lot.
You should tell us what your awesome company even does after that, because it looks like a gym, but it's not.
Yeah, what does it do? Tell everybody.
A prediction. Let me go with prediction. I believe that within a year, let's say a year and a half, there'll be 3 countries that completely adopt a cryptocurrency, whether that's Bitcoin or another currency. And they'll get rid of their US pegged currency. They'll just go complete digital currency, and that's about it.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's kind of cool. That would be insanely amazing. Can you imagine like going to crypto and getting rid of your own country's monetary unit and going to a crypto source? I mean, heck, look at all the countries in the European, EU that are tied to the same euro. It's like, that's crazy. I like it. All right, Kerry,
Belarus just legalized cryptocurrency activities over there, Belarus, and the decree that was signed into law, evidently they're not taxing crypto related activities. So that's an interesting approach. If you want adoption, well, yeah, eventually.
Well, they do that with the internet, right? With internet sales and stuff like that, and then tax.
Caught up with it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what about you, Kerry? What's going on? What's something?
You're not asking me for a Bitcoin prediction.
Yeah.
I don't have one.
Okay.
I don't have one. I can predict that these 2 women are not going to start a cryptocurrency startup. That's my prediction.
Well, I predict that I will not start one either, but I am going to, here's what I promise. I will be watching this very closely because I'm very interested in narratives and finding more narratives to share, but also too, I want to be watching the female founded cryptocurrency market. I want to see what's happening out there, and I'll be watching and bring it to you. Mark's computer froze. So I want to just make sure everybody knows on his behalf, because he's frozen, and Mark is frozen right now. Frozen. Yeah, he looks like Elsa. I was gonna say Elsa. But you know.
We need a cooler background, Kathy, because the brick is working for him.
The brick is totally working. We gotta up our game. So if you want to reach Mark, he is with Fanatics Media, and you can get him. You can get him to give you a tour. You can talk to him and follow him at Mark Fidelman, MarkFidelman, and I'll put the things here. And Kerry is at Kerry Gorgone. You can find Kerry where, Kerry?
Everywhere that Kerry Gorgone is sold. No, just kidding. Everywhere else. I'll tell you that. Toys R Us. Yeah, right. Oh my God, I don't want to grow up. I'm Kerry Gorgone on all the social networks. I'm kerrygorgone.com is my website, and marketingprofs.com is where my podcast is.
So thank you. And I'm Kathy Klotz-Guest, everybody. I'm the co-host, and you can find me at Keeping It Human. You can also follow me on Twitter at Kathy Klotz-Guest. And Kipster, you said that put the Twitter handles there. You said come to the crypto comedy event. Absolutely. Give me some information, Kipster. Give me some information. I would love to go to your crypto comedy event and go live from there. In fact, here's what I'll say. Not only give me information on that, Kipster, but come on with me. Come on with me. I'll have guests and comics come in, and we'll just do jokes. We'll do a lot of crypto comedy. Maybe you can co-host it, and we can bring different comics together, and we all sort of make it a show. So if you are game for that, let's do it, Kipster. I'm totally down for it, and let's make it happen. Let's make it happen, man. All right, everybody. Thanks, Kerry. Thanks, Mark.